Hi guys, Dennis here from Respect Studios, and this is ScrollRect Snap with Unity UI. That's for Unity 4.6 and later. This is for the new UI system, and we have just wrote the code that we're getting the distance between each button and the center of the scene. Now, from here, we want to make one float, which will be called min distance. And it's going to be doing mathf that min, and to get the minimum number from array of numbers, you just have to type the name of the array. So we're going to say distance. Now the mathf will go through all elements in the distance and will get the minimum number and store it in the min distance. Get the min distance. Okay. Now we need to make another loop for not int a equals 0, a is less than button dot length a plus plus. Here we're going to compare each distance if min distance, which is holding the minimum distance, the smallest value that we have for all distances of the buttons, if min distance is equal to distance a, so we're going to loop through each of the distances for each button and see which button have the same distance as the minimum distance, so we can get which button is holding the minimum distance, is having the minimum distance. So if the button A have the same distance as minimum distance, min button number, that's why we created that variable, will be equal to A. So now min button number is holding the number of the button that have the smallest distance to the center. Here we will say if dragging, which we simply say if we are not dragging, which means we have released the mouse. We'll say lerp to button, and we'll say min button num, which is the number of the button, multiplied by negative button distance. Let me create that function, void lerp to button, and we're going to need int position. Let me see what's Unity thinking about this. No errors, perfect. Now we're calling that function when we stop dragging, lerp to button. It's going to pass minimum button number, which, so for example, if button 3 have the minimum, the smallest distance, it min button number to be 3. So we're going to say 3 multiplied by button distance. Button distance simply gets the distance between the center of each button, which in our case is 300. So it's going to say 3 multiplied by negative 300. So 3 multiplied by negative 300, 3 multiplied by 300 is 900, so the result will be negative 900. And if we select the scroll panel, let me go to normal mode and set to negative 900, you see that button 0, 1, 2, 3, button 4 actually, because it's the third element, button 4 is at the center. Okay, I hope you got the idea. Now, if lerp to button, meaning if we're not dragging, we're going to make float new x to be equal mathf dot lerp, and we'll say panel dot anchored position dot x. We'll lerp from the panel anchored position dot x to position, which is the actual value that we're passing here. And we're going to lerp to time dot delta time multiplied by 10f. Now this is going to lerp that float new x. Then we'll say a temporary variable vector2 new position to be equal to new vector2, and we'll say new x, comma, panel that anchored position that y. So we want the same anchored position y as it was. All this is to apply to the scroll panel so it can snap. And finally we'll say panel that anchored position that, not that, because in C# we can't say x because it won't give us. This is why we're creating the vector2, new position, to be equal to new position. And we have to make just two more variables. They will be public because we will call them from the panel. Void start drag, and in start drag we will be say dragging equal true. Remember that we are going to lerp and actually activate the whole snapping thing only where we're not dragging. So when we drag, dragging will be true. Public void and drag, and we'll say dragging equal false. Now let's go back, and the actual panel that we're actually dragging is the scroll, the panel, the actual panel which have the ScrollRect. We're going to add event trigger, and we will add event which is begin drag, and one more event which is end drag. Begin drag, end drag. In both of them we're going to assign the game controller, and in begin drag we're going to go to ScrollRect snap, and we'll look for a start drag. In the end drag we're going to go to ScrollRect and we'll look for end drag. Now when we save, let me select that panel and move it to 0. When we play, we should be all good. Yeah. So we even have the inertia. So if you if you slide it a little bit faster, it will pass few buttons and then it will snap to the closest button. Okay, which is very awesome. When I was playing with the tutorial at first I didn't notice that because my inertia, my deceleration rate was set to 0, but here the deceleration rate is 0.13. If we set it to 0, you see that we don't have that. We can just drag and release. But if we set the acceleration rate to 0.2, for example, we can drag between few buttons, and you can even see how they are almost trying to move to the next one and then going back. Now it's very simple at the moment to add more buttons. You can just select button 5, duplicate it and move it 300 units away, which is 1500. Duplicate one more time, 1800. Duplicate one more time, 2100. And then you have to select the game controller and just assign these buttons. Button 6, button 7, button 8. Save, play. So you snap to our buttons. You can, since we're checking the distance between the buttons at the beginning of the script, what we can do is select all of the buttons and set their weight to 150 if you want. So if we play now, you can see that they still snap. You can change their distance as well. If you select, for example, 500, let me quickly 1000, 1500, 2000, 2500, 3000 and 3500. So So if we have these buttons with that distance, we are checking the distance at the beginning of the script, so we'll still be able, now we might need bigger inertia to be able to slide between them, but for example, if I set it to 0.25, it might be, let me just go to 16 by 9, yeah, we can snap, we can slide between a couple of the buttons, and I suppose if you want it to be a little bit lighter, you can go in the script and set the lerping to be multiplied instead of 10 to 2, for example, which will be a lot lower force. So yeah, you can see that it's a lot lighter now. So you can see that it's still snapping to the buttons, but you can go and know that this is completely working on mobile, because the UI is working on mobile. So at the moment that we did it, you can simply export it to your iOS, Android, or whatever, it will be working. So here we can even make the inertia not, let's disable the inertia to see what will happen. Yeah, if we disable the inertia, actually we won't be able to do that a lot, but if we keep it at 0.2, so I guess we can, actually don't, I guess we can keep that at 5. So 5 will be nice value. We can end the inertia to 0.5, 0.2. So now if we snap, yeah, 5 is a lot, like 2.5, because it doesn't look that, but if it's too low, it will get too much time for the button to go back. Well, if the distance is a lot, so if I make the distance 300, it will be a lot better. And a few things, make sure that the scroll panel is at 0 when you want to start. So if you want the buttons to be for example, I'm not sure if I can move them to be somewhere at here, because, but if I move the panel like this and it's not at start, it will still go to the start. But if you change its anchor to be here, for example, it won't work very well, because it's not at 0, it's at 509 units, and the panel should be at 0, and the buttons should start at 0 as well. And that's it, guys. I hope you like it. I mean, it's pretty awesome. You can use it for a lot of different things. It could be customized and updated somehow, but I think it works very well. If you like the tutorial, please subscribe, like the video, share it so more people can see it. I'll be very grateful for that. And thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.